Welcome, everyone, to another creative writing workshop. My name is Laurel. I am the director and co-founder of Educators in VR and the founder of the Creative Writing Workshop here in Engage XR. And this year, 2026, we've been having fun doing, every month we're doing a themed project. And this month is called The Right Path, W-R-I-T-E, The Right Path. We love that. And we've been looking at the ecosystem of the writer's life, some of the basic tenets, basic frameworks and structure of how we write. Today, we're going to be talking about, we've been talking about, well, I'm going to tell you about what we've been talking about, but today we're going to talk about building living and breathing stories and some basic tricks and tips that you can do, some fundamentals to help you do this. We meet every Tuesday here in Engage XR. These are free and open to the public. You need to register with Engage XR just because of the GDPR and permissions things, but you can register for free or help support the platform and pay. We'd love to have you join us. Our mission here with the Creative Writing Workshop is to create a supportive and creative educational environment for writers in virtual reality. We are the longest running virtual reality writing group ever, and we have hosted more writing events than anyone. It's kind of exciting, so we'd love to have you join us. So these are our monthly workshops that are already getting set up and ready to go. You don't need to register if you want to, that's up to you. If you register with Engage or with Eventbrite, it'll send you a reminder before the event so that you don't miss it, but they're all free and ready to go. And this month is the Writing Path. Next month we have our spring break, but we start out the first week of March. We have a reading event. Get your original stories, no longer than about 6 minutes max. We want to make sure there's time for everyone. Bring your stories. Margie, bring your stories. We love your stories. We love your
Thank
stories.
you.
Yeah. And then in April, we're going to do worlds in 3D. We're looking at world building and creating the world in and around your character. And we're going to be talking about some of that today. And then May, characters in motion, making really believable people. So we're going to have a lot of fun this year. Get ready for it. So the Right Path, all month long here in February, we started out with a creative ecosystem. You know, what's the environment in which you write in, and some tips and tricks of dealing with that. Last week was the research architect, really diving into how do you research your writing? What are some tools and tricks and things to think about as you're really exploring your character, exploring your world, and researching that. Today is building living and breathing stories, and next week, the drafting machine, getting it to that almost final stage. You know, whether it's your first draft or your 300th draft, we're going to be talking about some of the tips and techniques to get to that point. All right, today, building, living, and breathing stories. So I want to know, what makes a story feel like it's living and breathing? Margie, what makes one story feel like it's living and breathing? What are the elements?
I'm chewing my tuna sandwich. I'm sorry.
That would do it. That would do it. Stephen, what about you? What makes a story feel like it's living and breathing to you?
Well, of course, I write historical fiction. So in my case, I'm writing about things that were at one point living and breathing, and I'm simply plugging in fictional characters. So in that context, it's the reality of it all.
What does that mean? Because people,
well,
I've had people write about historical figures. She was queen. She did this. You know, it doesn't mean, it doesn't make them come alive. How do you make them come alive?
Well, what I'm saying is that you can take a dramatic moment in the past that really happened. We know a lot about it. We know a lot about how different people reacted to it, which is a guide, and then you plug in your fictionalized characters, but they were responding to something that did occur. I heard, and I don't know where the quote came from, I heard Richard Dreyfuss actually say this, was that God was the greatest screenwriter. So in that context, it's the human narrative that already exists that you're manipulating can bring it alive, because it is alive.
Mm-hmm. It's also layered, because there's many times where you want to do, you have a character and what happened to them is one thing. How people responded to what happened is another perspective. Their perspective is another layer too. So maybe they weren't the evil, nasty human being, you know, the psychopath that we thought they were. Maybe they were caught up in something that was beyond their ability to to cope with what was going on around them, but everyone's perception of them was as the psychopath. There's many layers to that process, and that's part of diving into a character, especially a historical reference character, is helping us see their perspective. And Ian just summed it up. He says the details in the story make it come alive. Absolutely. It's the little finite paintbrush strokes that help us to see the characters. Yeah, excellent. Jay, what about you? What makes a story feel like it's living and breathing?
Well, as far as I understand it, it is a mixture of dramatizing the conflict specifically enough so that you as the reader can recognize the sensory responses on a psychological level, no, an emotional level. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's you might as well be teaching this for me. Absolutely. So I want to bring two premises to you and just ask opinions. Which is better? Do you build the character and then build the world around them and then connect the two? Or do you build the world and build the character so their actions and emotions reveal the world? Character first, world first. Jay?
I would say character first, because that would be where the conflict begins. Although realistically, I think a lot of writers mix and match. Sometimes they start with the character and add world, then change the character, then change the world, and that they're writing. But in terms of conflict, I would say the characters, it begins the inspiration. This is a wild guess. I don't have anything to back it up. Like
Stephen?
Well, just as I was saying before, it depends on what you're doing. I'm a professional historian who writes historical fiction. I choose a world that actually existed, learn more and more about it, but I'm not making it up like in The Wizard of Oz. There is a real world there, and then I'm plugging in fictional characters who are interacting with real characters from whom we already have some basis of information. So it's a kind of a different kind of process. Depends on what you're trying to write.
It does. Yeah. Margie?
I think either will work, but I think the better way to start a story for me is to build the character first. As someone who's written mainly nonfiction all my life and interviewed many, many people, I tried to write in a way that made the reader feel they are hearing the person tell the story, not me tell the story. Okay, so I used a lot of quotes from people, even if they weren't particularly pithy quotes, because I wanted to reinforce that the story is being told by the person it actually happened to. So I think building the character first is important. And to address the question you asked when I was eating my tuna fish sandwich, I think what makes a story come alive for me is if the writer avoids stereotypes, because I get bored easily. And if I've read it 5 or 10 or 100 times before, I'm really not that interested. So quirky details and taking time to flesh out characters, I think that's important.
Absolutely. I think that's a good point. Thank you. And we forgive your tuna fish for that. For saying that.
Hey, a girl's got to eat.
I know. I understand. Steph, comment? Thoughts?
As I am new to some of this, I kind of abstain for the moment.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to make a really good point. This applies to Steph as well as Margie. The world in which your characters exist already exists. And we know it. It's the world we live in. You were drawing out people from current day or recent current day. So it's familiar. And you don't need a lot of detail about the world because we live in that world. Now, with Stephen, he's writing about something that was 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. I don't understand that world. I want to. That's why I would read his books. But living in today, we would understand. You'd make current references that would not have to be explained. So that's an interesting little twist on it, because we already know the world. So you're going to start with the character because you already have the world around it. Ian says that he thinks that the character should go first. Now, many people approach, there's no right or wrong to this answer, but many people approach character and world building separately. I'm going to build my character, then I'm going to build my world, and then I'm going to connect it. In a way, this is kind of backwards and inside out, because it separates the world from the character. And so the character can often feel like a museum exhibit. It's just something that's separate. And the reality is that characters that exist in a vacuum feel flat. And when you focus on character first and world second, the character's actions and emotions, they really need to reveal the world. So your world needs to be built to challenge and transform your character. You know, whether it's historical or it's current, your stories come out of the fact of how do your characters respond to the world around them. It is the world that challenged them. So I'm trying to think of, Margie, one of your stories where can't remember. The sociopath, the one with the girl who pretended that she was pregnant to get money to be paid as a surrogate.
Yeah.
She was trying to function in a world that she couldn't function in. So her actions were based on the world that she lived in and her perspective of that world. And she found she could con people because there was a drastic need. And today we understand surrogacy. That is a today current modern technology and modern event. That's not something that was around 1,000 years ago. So it doesn't have to be really explained. We get it. And how heartbreaking that experience is when there is no baby that the people paid for and expected and were planning for. That is devastating. So those
were the people I chose to tell the story from their perspective.
Absolutely. And so that's that influence of the world, the environment, the situation, current events, etc., on the character and the character responding to it. And so we're going to look at this a little more from the world perspective. We're going to talk about characters, but from the world perspective, to really create more organic world building. And all of this is integrated. There's no separate. There's no which came first, the egg or the chicken. It's all together. But when you look at them separately, you miss out on critical things. Yes, Stephen?
But in the question, which is better, it really doesn't matter, because there's something that has to come first. There has to be the incident. There has to be the hook, the thing that makes the person read the page and turn the next page. And then comes the, how do we create the larger world beyond the hook or the character? But there's got to be something that makes people want to go further in either direction.
Right. We're not talking about readers yet. We're talking about taking an idea. So some people will start with it. I'm not saying right or wrong. Some people will go, oh, I have a cool character. My husband built a whole game, a computer game, around a cool character that we met, and he transformed the character, and then he built the environment around it. That's fine. But you can also create an environment and then see what interesting characters are within that. So it's integrated process. There is no better. But it's about, how do you start your story? How do you look at that? How do you build those things to build towards that story? That's the key. Yeah, Margie?
Do you think there might be a third, which is something I
Absolutely.
think that Stephen might, is your name Stephen? It says Libo. Okay.
Yes.
I think it might have been what he was talking about. But I think a situation can start it, and then you decide what world it would work best in, and then you develop a character to be put in that situation. So I think for me, a lot of times when I'm writing fiction, it's a situation. Somebody will say, oh, this such and such happened, and I think, gosh, what if that guy was a doctor and it happened to him? And then there's a situation, and everything else gets built around it.
And you just said the magic word. You just said the magic word, Margie. What if?
Yeah,
absolutely. It is a what if, and a situation is the world. It is the energy and the people and all the parts and pieces is part of that world picture. But yeah, absolutely. There's so many ways that things evolve through the process. So I'm not saying there's anything exclusive, But
Right.
so part of really focusing on those living, breathing stories and the integration of both the world and the character, again, not writing as if they're separate. I'm going to write everything about my character. Now where am I going to put them? Now I have to come up with a world. Really integrating that so that it's a part of that whole picture of the character is so important. It's really important that you understand, we've covered this before, so I'm going to just brushstroke the 8 essential character archetypes, or however many, there's actually more sub-archetypes and things, and understanding their psychology. Because the more you understand about psychology, as we have done over the years, the better your characters. The more you can understand how they responded, why they responded, and what's going on in that brain in there. And then the worlds serve the character transformation. They need to complement each other. Stephen?
One of the things I've learned writing a series that's very long and covers a lot of years is that you need to know far more about your character than you reveal in the early pages.
Absolutely.
Because it allows you to have them not only grow over time, but you can foreshadow the growth without it being obvious.
Mm-hmm. When I was a teenager, I worked during the summer doing just odds and ends jobs, and I was working for a furniture seller one summer, and he taught me this very wise thing. He said, in order to sell something, you need to know 90% or 70 to 90% about this thing. So if it's a vacuum cleaner, it's a computer mouse, it's a whatever it happens to be, a car, you need to know about that. But you're only selling and revealing about 10% of that. It's really important that you mentally exist in the world and in your character's mind and all those things. But no, as you write, you want to expose things over time. But if you go in without really knowing, that's one of the places where many writers will hit writer's block, because they're missing key information of background story and things. But again, you reveal it over time. That's part of the draft and part of the craft of the story. But getting to that 70 to 90% of knowledge and then reveal just enough of it, that's part of the trick. So ask yourself, what does your character know? What do they know about the world that they live in? What do they observe, and how do they react and move through the land? What do they know? What is it? What do they know about their society, the politics? I don't care, whatever it is that you're covering, the geology, the weather. What do they know? What do they know? And then what don't they know? That's where the real fun happens. And their choices reveal their character. For example, if your character is fearful, the shadows deepen and colors dull and things, if they are working off from fear base, the world around them changes. If your character is really curious, then they'll look around at things and see things differently, and things will catch their eye in different ways. And so what do they look at? What do they choose to look at in their environment? What do they choose to pay attention to? And what do they miss? That's always part of that. If you only see and understand what your character knows. Now, gaps in that understanding are visceral. We see them, readers can see them, characters may not see them, but how you reveal that information tells us about who the character is, their emotional state, their, to help predict their responses and things. But it also, so we need to reveal the world that they know and that impact of that world. And conflict happens when they step beyond their comfort zone, right? When they go beyond their comfort zone, that's when the real magic happens in the story, right? So you move through the world as a character, you pick up something, you encounter a conflict, and those choices that the characters make reveal who they are and what they are as how they respond to the world around them. Does that make sense to you? Jay's nodding. Yeah. Okay. Marty's nodding. Okay. So this is something, I tried to find an example that most people would remember and recall. So one of the examples hits some of these key elements to is the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Now, this is a moment at the very end where Harry's already experienced the mirror. What's the mirror in the Sorcerer's Stone in Harry Potter? Do anyone remember what the purpose of the mirror was?
Was it to see his? I know he saw his parents in it.
No, to see the greatest desire. In Harry's
Fondest
case,
desire.
he saw his parents.
Fondest desire.
Yeah, you see your fondest desire. And the famous quote of some people age and die in front of that because they're seeing what they want and they're not experiencing the world, which the world is often not getting what you want. So that's a lovely layered example. And in the end, Harry's going up against Quirrell, who's also Voldemort, has, latched on. And I'm just going to read a little excerpt just to remind people about. So this is Quirrell. I don't understand. Is the stone inside the mirror? Should I break it? So the Quirrell sees the philosopher's, or the Sorcerer's Stone inside the mirror because that's his greatest desire. He has to get that because Voldemort has ordered him. So he sees himself getting it. Harry has a different experience. Harry's mind was racing. What do I want more than anything else in the world at this moment? He thought, is to find the stone before Quirrell does. If I look in the mirror, I should see myself finding it, which means I'll see it where it's hidden. How can I look without Quirrell realizing what I'm up to? Again, these are excerpts. Quirrell ignored him. He was still talking to himself. What does the mirror do? How does it work? Help me, master. Harry's horror, a voice answered, and the voice seemed to come from Quirrell himself. Use the boy. Use the boy. Oh, that just sound always gave me the willies. Come here, Quirrell repeated. Look in the mirror and tell me what you see. As Harry moved aside, he felt the Sorcerer's Stone against his leg. It was in his pocket. I must lie, he thought desperately. I must look and lie about what I see. That's all. So in many ways, this is kind of a masterclass in show and tell. It uses a physical object, and it's a high-stakes interaction, and it defines who the protagonist is at their core. So what do we know about Harry at this moment? He's under incredible stress. He's being threatened with death. What do we know about Harry from just this little excerpt?
He has a lot of self-control.
Okay, what else? He's a truth teller.
He's after a certain goal.
He has a goal.
Take the stone.
Right, he has a goal, but we also, it's killing him. He has to lie. He says, I must lie. And he's desperate about it. I must look and lie about what I see. So we learn that Harry doesn't lie well. So we're getting a layer that's in there. The conflict, the non-player character is with a mirror. We have the mirror that is showing us the different philosophies. We have the threats. We have that desperate need to want and to see it, but you can't get it. There's a lot of layers that are in here. And then Quirrell is a vessel for Voldemort. He is not, he's part of the character, but we have these two interactive characters that are all wedged into one. And he's really not an independent agent. He's not an adult. He's going, I don't know what to do. Help me. I don't know what to do. Help me, master. He's like a child in that moment. And all the way through, and we see, if we look back at the character, he's always been childlike throughout the whole story. So it brings that all around. We have the external threat. We have internal temptation. There's a lot of layers that are happening with this. And
linking this up to your previous slide, what's interesting to me as a writer is we've got 4 different points of view. And this is in a really compact setting. You've got the most sophisticated, of course, is Potter, but we have Harry Potter's point of view, we have Quirrell, we have Voldemort, and we have the audience, the reader's point of view. And she's linking these up and so quickly moving from one to the other, because in each sentence, we are forced to go along with this other point of view.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what's really very impressive in terms of what Rawlings done here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I was aiming for. Thank you. Because we're seeing the characters, but we're living through the characters. So we are feeling Harry's honesty, his determination to succeed and lie, but also his tenacity, as you know, his determination, as Steph said. We are, and his goal to fight the greater evil, and it turns Harry from a victim into a hero by the simple task of lying. So we have some subtleties that go in there. This was a really hard one to not do a really complex story as an example, but you want to look for those little layers and those little details in there to help do that. And so let's talk about how that happens. Now, these are their 5 key elements that add layers upon layers and things to help with the character. The character architecture. We have the core desire, the motivation and impediment. We have the consistency with the world logic. We have internal contradiction and emotional truth. Let's go through these really quickly, not too quickly, but enough to give you a taste of these things. And I'll write up, a guide to help you with these as well. The core desire is, what does the character want, need? Now, what's the difference between a want and a need?
Wants they're always conscious of, needs not so much.
Okay, are they synonymous?
Only some.
Why do you laugh, Stephen?
You really want to know? I spent several years interviewing people about pregnancy and their sexuality, and we had it defined between how people reacted to becoming pregnant, and whether
Okay.
excited or not, and whether they needed it or were trying to, but were happy anyway, and not knowing which it was. And that is where it became really obvious these are not the same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yes, Steph's right. In a nutshell, she's right. There's usually people don't know what their true need is, but they know what they want. And often want is often tangible, need is intangible, but sometimes want is, there. But what's some emotional goals that a character might have? Emotional goals. Okay, Ian says you want to go to the mail, but you need to eat. Okay, that's a physical with a physical goal with a semi-emotional goal. Okay, that works. All right. What else? What's some other examples of emotional goals that a character may have?
Getting another character to love them or conquer a villain.
Okay. It's usually not conquer a villain. There's usually something deeper to conquer a villain. Do you know what it is?
No.
Oh, it's usually to get the respect or pride from someone. So you conquer a villain because then your mom or dad will be proud of you, or your community, your village will respect you. You will earn respect. So you do the big thing because you want you want that acceptance, you want that respect and that trust and things like that, or to feel like you belong.
So the hero's journey always comes back to the village and gets feted.
Well, that's what you hope. That's what they hope. But there's underlying things of what is that core need that's in there. And the desire is underneath every decision they make. And that often is a source of conflict. So if somebody wants to get respect and to have somebody, have some particular person be proud of them, the chief, the parent, the whatever it is, to be proud of them, they're going to do things that could be boneheaded. I'm going to jump off this cliff. Ooh, well, you broke your neck, so there you go. Did you make anyone proud? No. There's people do crazy things in order to get whatever that emotional goal is. And that drives the character. It influences their decisions because they're often not thinking rationally. And at some point, ration moves in and they make less boneheaded decisions. But, you have to understand what that psychology is. What is driving your character? And then how does that create conflict? How does that really step in and create problems with it? So in Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet wants her core desire is really to be truly loved and respected as an equal, right? Not married off for just status. So her resistance to Mr. Collins and then rejecting Darcy shows that there's this deeper need to not just be loved, but really wants respect, really wants compatibility, not just safe. Safe isn't good enough. At a time when the world around the character is safe is a better choice. It doesn't matter. You'll get respect after you've been married for 10, 20 years, but right now it's safer. And Elizabeth Bennet did not want safe. She wanted those things, but it came in conflict with her desire to be respected as an equal and to be loved for who she was before she walked down the aisle. What's in the sea? Any other? Lord of the Rings. To protect the Shire and preserve the peace and the innocence. That was the desire, right? That's the core desire in Lord of the Rings. But the whole plot is about destroying the ring. But what does Frodo want? He wants a simple, safe world. And he can't let that go. It drives his willingness to leave the ring behind, but the ring keeps, showing up and stuff. But they're trying to destroy it, but the ring keeps coming up. So find a way of really, how does that influence? Okay. What's the motivation and impediment? Why do they want this? Now, and what happened to them to make them want this? This is really important. What happened to them to make them want this? And then what gets in their way? Is it internal, external? What prevents them from getting it? That's where some great conflict comes in. And a character who wants to be loved but pushes people away because they're afraid of abandonment. They're afraid, the decision to stay safe all the time creates abandonment. That's part of the problem, right? So that's that layer in there. It's where the tension builds all the drama and it gets in their way all the time. And Harry Potter is a great example where he grew up feeling unloved and marginalized, right? The Dursleys treated him like crap. He really didn't feel like he was valuable.
But the Dursleys didn't want to be different either.
Right. And absolutely. So right there, you've got that's a beautiful example. They did not want to be different and he made them different. And so right there is conflict with his whole world right there. Two worlds clashing. And that's, again, that's that beautiful layer in there. Good example. And then we have consistency with world logic. And this is where so many books in the early draft stage, when I get them, when I'm doing some developmental editing, this is where things fall down. So they forgot to really have consistency with the world logic, where the character skills and qualifications need to match the ability of the world, whether they're doing magic or whether they're, doing math. It doesn't matter. It needs to match the world around them, the abilities that are there, and the character's abilities on Earth. If they have a skill that the plot requires, make sure that their background and the world justifies it, and it needs to stay consistent. And there's a key element here that the character feels that an inevitable given the world and the history. This we always knew. This is where fate moves in, right? This is where fate moves in. That, given what's going on, this is our expectation. And when you break expectation, that's really dangerous for readers. So you keep those in mind and just make sure that everything is consistent with logic. So many times I see people trying to emulate like Sherlock Holmes stories, But they miss the fact that it is Sherlock Holmes' pathology. It is his fact that he is a sociopath that who's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but he just has no empathy and almost no empathy and no emotionally, responses. So it isn't just he's just a random genius. He is tuned in to London and its crimes because of his psychological makeup. He is a man of his time. He's not out of time. He is consistent with that time and that perspectiveness of it. He is exploring the beginning stages of forensic science that we now, CSI. CSI was a huge game changer in television and in science. So the crime investigation, whatever it's called, the CSI, crime, whatever it is, criminal science, isn't that what it is? Criminal science investigation, whatever. That television show revolutionized the murder mystery detective television movies and even the work done by crimes. It created whole careers. People didn't understand forensic science. And so that was a breakthrough moment. And today we think nothing of it to go, did they do a DNA test? Did they do the da-da-da test? We know how that works. We've seen how that happens. So remember to stay consistent with the logic and the science, but be willing to push the limits a little bit too. That's why we love Star Trek. It's within our comprehension, but it pushes the envelope just a little bit more without breaking the wheel. All right. Internal contradiction is absolutely critical for character architecture. Again, opposites attract. We know that. Make those happen. Build those in. Really explore your character arc to see that it lines up. Someone who doubts their competence fights harder to become a leader because they often doubt that. There needs to have that conflict there. A loyal friend who resents the fact that they're a loyal friend. They resent their own things in their, an optimist who appears optimistic all the time, but actually has a depression, underlying depression that they struggle so hard to hide from people. Great ways to have internal conflict and contradiction within your characters. And remember that the journey that your story takes needs to resolve or integrate that contradiction so the character is stronger at the end of this. And I have 1,000 examples of that. Skywalker in the Star Wars prequels is such a beautiful example because it is his fear of loss that pushes him towards the Force. And at that fear of he wants so much peace and he wants safety and security, but that loss pushes him right into the evil that caused all of that problem. So look for those moments. Okay, I want to get through these to get to the next part because we have a fun thing coming up. The last of these character layers is to look for emotional truth. Characters' feelings matter. Our characters are not flat on a page. They're not just words on a page. What's the feeling underneath? Not the plot stuff, but the real emotional core stuff. What does the character make you feel when you think about them? That's what your readers are going to connect to. So think about all of that. And the best scenes are the ones that reveal that emotional truth, that really take the reader on that emotional journey so that they feel it. And y'all know there's so many stories. Catcher in the Rye was one of the first ones that came to my mind. And The Handmaid's Tale is an emotional roller coaster. We love that. We love that. Okay, any questions about those? I know we kind of raced through them. Those are just surface things, the 5 layers of characters. Now we have the archetypes. These are some of the core ones. There are many sub-archetypes that come in, but the primary ones are the hero, the shadow, the mentor, the threshold, guardian is classically called, the herald, the shapeshifter, the trickster, and the ally. Now, there's so many others that have been developed over time and different ways of thinking about these. But the archetypes, again, I'm not going to go into depth about these, but these are really good tools that help you define your characters, to really help you understand the function your character serves within your story. And mixing and matching these is really great fun. Okay, now let's get into the world building. We have 5 layers of world building, and we're going to go through these using the Blake Snyder's beat sheets, his methodology to look at how a character develops within their world. So we have the 5 layers is where the protagonist acts as a lens, so that the reader sees the world through the eyes of your character. They experience, we not just are experiencing what happens to them, but actually the world around them, their knowledge, their emotional state, and pay attention. What do the characters pay attention to? That helps to paint the world around them. And, there's people where you have a friend who sees danger everywhere they look. Lance is one of those where they see monsters in the corners. There are people who are, having a character that sees danger everywhere they look can be really fascinating. Add a little empathy to the process and gets a more fascinating character. Curious character will see mystery and conspiracy behind every corner. They're looking at the same corner, but you can have some great fun with those things. So look for ways to layer those things and create the magic in those characters. Nothing's worse than a know everything character. It's just crazy. Really pay attention to the character's position in society. There's so many great opportunities with that. Because they experience the world differently. A tourist experiences the world differently than a resident. We need to understand that and see that, or look at their whole economic hierarchy, however they position themselves in Hawaii, in the society, and help us understand, how does your character navigate the world? How do they get food? Where do they live? What kind of shelter do they have? What's the economy? What matters most? Money, reputation, magic, ability to ride dragons, whatever it is. And what are the rules around them? What's forbidden? What's taboo? And then once you understand that, then you have opportunities to have your characters show those or not show those. You get to control what they see. The history the character inherited. Stephen, this is masterclass for you, right? Because you're talking about characters in history. History happened before your character was born, and they often have to live with that, right?
Well,
Not only
I'm doing
make it.
2 different things. I mean, I've got different characters playing different roles, but I'm jumping from one character's perspective to another, which also changes the dynamics.
Absolutely. But when you but your character has a history that brought the economy, the politics, the world that they live in. It didn't just turn up yesterday. They have to live within that history.
Oh, absolutely. And within the narrative, as we understand it, history of the people they're interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have major, well-known people and some real people that aren't known well, and they are characters interacting with the fictional characters. And all of those things lock them into these perspectives as well.
Absolutely. So we have world history. We also have personal history. So a female warrior going to battle who was raped as a child or raped as an adult has a different perspective than one who's not. Their personal history matters, and you need to know it. You need to understand. So. That's part of the research.
I think from my perspective, I would say in the context of writing creatively, there is no world history. It's only the personal history of the people caught up in macro events, if you will.
Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Absolutely. So again, there's personal history. There's the world live in history, because they have to be a part of it. The situational, there's many layers to that process. And also, when you're looking at what drives your character, maybe it's something that happened in the past that they want to fix, they want to change, something is motivating. So history, the character inherits all this, their agenda, You need to be aware of it, and that can really help make that character be more alive, more, breathing, and help flesh out that story. Now, stakes for the character are absolutely critical. Why does any of this matter? Why does the world matter for the story? What's the impact of what's going on around this character? And what could your character lose? What could they gain? If your plot involves the character has to break a rule, then there needs to be that logic that the rule needs to be credible and costly. And we as a reader need to understand it. So you need to make sure that we understand this is like the worst thing they could do, or whatever. This is breaking a rule in here. And so you have to understand those processes. Is this making some sense? Little bits? It's a lot of information. Okay, let's break this down into little bits. I'm going to go through the 15 things that are part of the beat sheet for in Blake Snyder's Save the Cat. Just to get a feel, this is the path the character has and how they interact with the world that's around them. And the opening image is the character's starting emotional state, which is usually normal. What is the world like when everything is normal? And then things need to change. And in that normalcy, we understand that, and the conflict that comes from it is something like, can you trust the people? Can you, something is a question is posed, which then is answered through the story. You have the setup. The character living with a flaw is about to be challenged. There you go. There's one great example. And then the catalyst, the inciting incident. Something disrupts the world. It disrupts the everything around the character, disrupts the character, and forces the character to make choices. Then we have the debate. Character says, not going there. You can say, I have to, don't want to, but then the stakes are clarified. You do, or somebody dies. You have to move forward. The character has to go into the conflict, but they have to fight back because they don't want to be going. You got heel marks and nail marks all along the door, heading out, being shoved out the door into the adventure. Then we have Act 2, where the character starts to commit to the action. There's no turning back. They're shoved forward, and that's when the B story often hits, where we have the subplot going on and the helper character is often introduced. Then we have fun and games as the helper character dances in and out, tension builds, promises of the premises delivered, all the little bits and pieces. Then we come to the midpoint where there is a false victory or dramatic failure. We won. Ooh, we didn't win. Something is in there and the stakes are raised because this technique that they've been doing is not working. Bad guys move in, character starts to head down. They know that this is nothing they're doing is working. They're fighting back. This is classic for so many stories, so many, Harry Potter's written on this. So many television shows are all based on all of this. You can plot this out. Once you get this in your head, you see it every time you watch a TV show or a movie. You go, oh, here we are at this point. It leads us to the dark night of the soul, where all is lost, the emotional low point for your character. They can't function anymore. They're giving up. Of course they can't, because Act 3 is when the allies and the friends move in, and there's more epiphany ideas. They understand what they need, not what they want. And it moves into the closing part, which eventually heads to the final image, which is a duplicate with changes of the opening scene. It's a return to normalcy, so to speak. And then there's the implicit transformation where the character is visibly and psychologically in some way changed. Not always, but that's what the hope is. So everyone basically familiar with the core? So we're going to break this down into, we're going to do, I was going to do both. We've run out of time. So we're going to do one of these. We're going to do the Lion King. And hopefully y'all are familiar with Lion King. We're going to do our best to help you through that. So it starts with the opening image, which is on Pride Rock. What happens on Pride Rock? Anyone know? Jay?
If I remember correctly, like Mufasa tells Simba, it's been more than a decade since I've seen it, but he says, this will all be yours one day. He shows him how much he's going to rule over the land, and talks to him about how, they eat wildlife, but the flora eats meat. Well, I guess like predators decompose. Yeah. Generally just foreshadowing the maybe it's not foreshadowing, but that's basically what's happening. Or no, wait, that's when Simba is born. That's the first thing that happens. Gosh.
Yes, Simba's born, and Simba's a carefree cub. So that's the opening thing. He's running around on that until Mufasa says, you got to have responsibility. You got to love your tribe. You got to take care. And it starts to, that's the theme, is your tribe is your tribe is your family, and you got responsibilities, and you were born to be a leader. And what does Simba say? I'm gonna play. I don't need any of this stuff. So right there you have conflict, and that happens. And then the catalyst is Mufasa dies. Well, Simba can't handle this in any way, and so but that's the inciting incident right there. Is the catalyst is when the Scar's plot begins, and when Mufasa dies. And then Act 2 is Simba runs to the Hakuna Matata, and thinks that everything is all good and we can't do, and blah, 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 blah. And then Nala, at the midpoint, Nala confronts Simba and says, change is good. You've got to get over this. You got to grow up. But Simba still doesn't want to grow up, but is forced into there. And then all is lost moment is when Rafiki shows Mufasa's ghost. And anybody remember what Mufasa says? Remember who you are.
Yeah, the monkey hits him, and then the lion says, well, that hurts. And then the monkey replies, well, it doesn't matter. It's in the past.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's in the past. And so the pain is short-lived, and you're going to have to suffer through it because this is your job. And so by Act 3, Simba realizes he has epiphany, has to return back to Pride Rock. And in the finale, there's a climactic battle and all the nonsense and things that happens, and Simba reclaims his throne. So in every step of that, we've got an obvious and emotional resonance that happens. And this has many layers to it. So the core desire is to be worthy of his father's legacy and accepted as king. But his desire is, I want to be a kid and I don't want this. That's his want. It's not his desire, but that's his job. So we got lovely conflict in there. With the motivation and impediment is Mustafa's death and the guilt, Scar's manipulation, and then trying to escape out of Hakuna Matata. The logic, the world logic, is the African ecology, the savanna, the politics of the hyenas, the Scar. We have the circle of life. The circle of life is a driving force. That is a powerful, beautiful, visual theme that runs throughout all of this, right? That's part of that world logic. This is the circle of life. This is life and death and composting, etc. This is the full circle in it. That's a universal thing that people can, you get it. You get the circle of life. You go, oh, I've seen plants and trees and bushes and plants and animals. I get this. So it really adapts to the reader. Very profound thing. And then we have the internal contradiction. Wants responsibility, but doesn't want responsibility. This is also known as the runaway prince motif, which happens over and over and over in fairy tales and everywhere else, where you go, you'll need to be there, you're going to be king. I'm gone. Bye. See you later. And then have a venture, come back and realize you have to take over anyway. There's so many stories that have that runaway prince or princess theme to it. The emotional truth is the grief, the guilt, the redemption, and the courage, right? In the world building, we see through Simba's eyes. We see his perspective on the Pride Rock, which represents home and security. The graveyard of the elephants is danger. The jungle oasis is escapism. And the consequences of his absence is when the Pride Lands are devastated. He has to fight back to heal them and recover. So there's so much universality in here. There is visual storytelling elements that happen in this. There's, it hits every single one of the beats and all of the elephants in it. Does it make sense? Hey, Jason? Okay. So stories feel alive when every choice the character makes is shaped by who they are on the inside and the rules of the world that is around them. And character and world are breathing in sync. They are connected with that. That's how you get those living and breathing stories, is when that there is no division between the character and the world, which was the point that I wanted to make at the beginning. It doesn't matter which one you start with. If you start with a character, you start with a world. If you don't treat them separately, you really integrate them so that they're all, your character cannot exist without the world, and the world cannot exist without your character. Thoughts, comments? And Jason, thank you for showing up. We're just finishing up. I'm glad you're here.
I was wondering, considering that started out being a film project, would it be any differently if that had started out being, written down in a book as opposed to made into a film?
Well, the one that I skipped over was Finding Nemo, which was a book first, I believe. Follows the same path. Everything's exactly the same. I just didn't do the graphics for it. We didn't have time. The beats stay the same. The same 5 layers for the characters. The character architect stays the same. There's no difference.
Mm-hmm.
And these things also apply to sub-characters that are truly, and to your antagonist. Your antagonist and the protagonist and the sub-characters, you need to understand what's their desires, what's their motivation and impediment. Why does the helper help? What, and what's their personality? I'd never seen, is it called Train Your Dragon? Never saw it.
Oh, yeah.
And watched it recently, and oh my gosh, I almost included it, except that I had done this weeks ago, because it follows the same thing, the same plot, same thing, and the helper character, which is the girl, I don't remember her name now. Anyway, she is a beautiful supporter, but she is the first one to create conflict, because she wants more than he does, and he doesn't want it, and she wants it. She's good at it, and he's the one who has to be leader, not her. And so we've got beautiful conflict between the helper and the main character. So there's great character development in that. It was cute. It was really cute, but it followed the same.
But to answer his question, there is a difference between a film that is 90 minutes long or 2 hours long, and the greater flexibility to develop the larger imagery of a book.
Absolutely.
I mean, and books can easily, and Ken Follett shows us all the time, can open up with what is basically a short story that won't be revealed to be part of the larger story for a couple hundred pages, as very slowly what was in that short story that you enjoy but don't understand flows out later. So there are a lot of different things that can be accomplished.
Absolutely.
That flow, and this, of course, was largely a coming of age story in both of these cases. But there are other ways to approach things as well.
Absolutely. And you can also take a very short story and flesh out an entire movie or TV series. So it goes in every single direction. And I'll give you an example of Stargate. Stargate started out as a movie, which became a 20-year plus television series, and now they're bringing it back again because they found ways within the world that was created of Stargate, and the premise of having a gate that could travel instantly between planets was a great world to create many, 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 many stories and characters. So it goes, there is no right or wrong or whatnot. These are all many, many ways of taking brilliant ideas, fleshing, or even half-baked ideas, and fleshing them out into something fascinating if the right ideas and storyline comes together. Yeah. I've seen children's books be fleshed out into 2-hour movies, and I went, oh my God, I could have gotten this in the time it took to read the children's book. It goes both ways, all ways, but yeah. Now, there's
I think
something about reading
the
so
ultimate
beautiful
goal,
and powerful, though.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, the ultimate goal is to have a reasonable number of readers want to turn the page.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really the only thing that
Absolutely.
matters.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. Other thoughts, lessons learned, comments? Jay, was this helpful?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit distracted this morning because I had a really great writing. I last night I wrote the very last scene to my novel, which did take a load off my mind. Then, yeah, but I didn't like. I was so excited. Yeah, I didn't get much sleep, so this morning so today I didn't get as much writing done as I thought. But I'm a little ahead of schedule. But anyway, no. But yes, this is. Yes, I mean, I think from my perspective, I'm just like trying to complete this novel in a year. I feel like there's probably a lot of character strengthening I could probably do in a future round, but you know, this having been developmental hell, I just want to finish it and have. I'm still gonna have fun, but sorry to keep rambling. But
no, but that's part of what we're going to be talking about. Some of that next week with the drafting machine element is getting it out of your head. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care how it comes out. If it comes out in dribbles and bits and chunks, and you write the beginning of the story, end of the story, middle of the story in any order you want. There's no chronology to the writing. There's chronology to the story. But then taking that and making sense out of it. But getting it out of your head is the most important thing. So kudos for you, my friend, for getting most of it out of your head. The rest is going to be craft, man. The rest of it is craft, and that's part of the magic. Any other insights or thoughts on what I just fire hosed you with?
Yeah, no matter what you write, you're not going to make everybody happy with it, and a whole bunch of people are going to think you're an idiot. And if you can't accept those two things, don't even try.
Yeah. If Steph, I'm so jealous of Steph. Steph has the ability to play devil's advocate in social media in a way that would crush my soul. I can't even think of the things that she comes. You are an absolute craft master at devil's advocating and people and debating online. I'm so jealous of that ability. You really are amazing. But it takes backbone, and it takes knowing who you are, and to quote the famous actress and award-winning actress and drag queen, you gotta be water off a duck's back. You just gotta let it all just wash over you, because there's gonna be people who are gonna be really, really mean to you, and you know what? Bugger them, you know. You can't. So yeah.
Indeed.
Good point. Thank you. All right, y'all. This was fun. It was fun for me. I love pulling this out and putting this together. Again, this is the third in our series of The Right Path, the creative ecosystem. We've done the first one, the research architect. Now today was building living, breathing stories, some basic, frameworks and things to think about. Next week, we're going to look at the drafting machine, taking this to where Jay's at right now. You got something. Now what do you do with it?
Good timing.
I got it here. Now we got it. So that's perfect timing. Here's the list of the events that are going to be coming up throughout the year. This year, we're going to be doing themed topics. So we're going to have 4, maybe even 5 weeks of sessions on these different topics. And next month is a reading event. We're doing spring break. And then we're looking in April at Worlds in 3D, really looking at world building and putting our characters into different environments. And we're going to be dancing around some great worlds here in Engage XR to really experience that and make, look at what could happen with your characters through this process. So we're going to have a great deal of fun with that. So get ready for it. These are all free and open to the public, and we'd love to have you join us every Tuesday right here in Engage XR. So thank you, everyone. Yay!